A long time ago, there lived a girl called Owaya in the village of Ashaki. She was very beautiful and well-mannered. She lived with her parents and three brothers in a small bungalow at the very busy part of the village. At that time, education was very important because it was a thing that had just begun in that part of the world. She was in her final year of study in the secondary school while her younger siblings were in lower classes in the same secondary school. Every day, they walked together to school and also returned back home together at closing time. In that village, there was a young man called Alasu. He lived in the same quarter where Owaya lived with her parents. He was a university graduate with a first degree in accountancy. He was very much interested in Owaya and always made her know that. Alasu made her know he loved her and was interested in getting married to her when he was through with his studies. One day, he approached Owaya's parents and told them he was interested in marrying their daughter. Owaya's parents were very happy to hear that because he was highly educated and was well respected in the community. But Owaya's parents advised him to get a job first so that he would be able to take care of Owaya when they became husband and wife. So from that day, everyone around who heard about it always addressed Owaya as Alasu's wife jokingly. Alasu's parents brought Owaya gifts and many beautiful things and related well with the family as future prospective in-laws. Owaya gradually fell in love with Alasu because he adored and respected her. He completely doted on her and she basked in his love. One day, the news came that Alasu had received an important scholarship to study master's degree in accountancy in Britain, which was one of the first in the village of Ashaki. Everyone was happy and excited for him, and he ran all the way to Owaya's house to tell them the good news, and they were all very happy when they heard about it. Although Owaya was very happy to hear the news, she felt sad that she would not be able to see the love of her life again for many years until he returned back. That was if he so desired to return back to the village, she thought. He may feel the village was too small for him and the people not as advanced as he was any longer after his course. And it never crossed her mind that no matter how beautiful and rosy a foreign land is, nothing is as sweet as home. As the saying goes, home sweet home. Alaso sensed this thought in her and told his parents. Upon hearing this, his parents decided to do a marriage introduction so that the family will know Oya was their wife. And when Alaso returned from his studies, they will then do the proper marriage. So the marriage introduction ceremony was a great occasion. And as it was being done, there was a big party of dining and wining. And everyone knew that Oya was now the true proposed wife of Alaso. So no one in the village would be able to ask for a hand in marriage anymore. They were now betrothed to one another. From that day onward, they went everywhere together, like twins. Alaso did not touch her carnally because he wanted to respect her and keep her pure until after their marriage. In those times, girls were regarded somehow, mostly virgins. Men respected them and worshipped them for keeping themselves in a sanctimonious way. Imagine being the man to teach an untouched girl the intimate ways of the world. It was a thing of grace and blessings to the man. On the last day of his stay in the village, Alaso held Owaya in his arms and they both cried at the fact that they were going to leave each other for good 2 years. They will not be able to see each other for this period. He was going to travel to Britain. Although he was bringing something good, but it was touching. My love, Alaso whispered, you mean the world to me, and I can't live without you. Please try to be happy. And as soon as I'm through with my studies, I will come back and we'll both get married. Yes, my love. Oh, I cried. I've been waiting for you. I'm thinking about you daily until we meet again. They spent the whole day together, and the following morning, Alaso left to study in Britain. 2 months after Alaso traveled to Britain to resume his studies, Waya finished her secondary school education. It was holiday time, and Waya told her parents she wanted to go to the city of Lagos to spend the holidays with her mother's sister, Aunt Ndego. Aunt Ndego was a sewing mistress, and she lived in Ajegule with her husband and 2 children. She was happy when Waya arrived for her holiday visit because she now had someone to help her with her work. They were thus living together when one day Aunt Ndego realized the holiday would soon be over and her niece may want to return back to the village. So she asked Waya what she was going back home to do after the holidays. Why don't you stay with us here? She said to Waya. You can get a job here and apply to study while you work instead of going back to the village to do nothing. Yes, auntie, but my parents may not like it that way, Waya replied. Don't worry, I'll convince them to let you stay, Aunt Ndego said, smiling. The next day, she sent a letter to Waya's parents, explaining everything they had planned. That Waya will stay in Lagos and look for something to do until her husband to be returned home from the travel to marry her. Aunt Ndego and her husband started to look for a job for Waya. One day, her husband returned home from work to say he had seen a job for Waya in a pool office. He said he had spoken to the man in charge of the pool office and he had agreed for Waya to resume work on Monday. So on Monday, Waya resumed work as a clerk in the pool office. He took data of all the sales and pools played in the games, and at the end of the month, she received her pay. She had worked for almost 2 months when she received a letter from Alaso. The letter read thus: Dear beloved future wife, it's been long since I saw your vivacious face. I miss your loving smile and kind nature, my love. Though everything seems beautiful, rich and grandeur here, yet none can compare with your love. I miss you so much, and I'm counting each day until we meet again. I'm very much longing for the day you'll completely become mine and I yours. My love, you'll find some things I've parceled to you. Please accept them and enjoy yourself, my beautiful bride. Lots of love, yours loving husband-to-be, Alaso. This was typical of him. She read it and felt elated at seeing the letter. When she saw the things Alaso sent to her, she was completely overwhelmed and very happy indeed. Her aunt was happy for her too, and they opened each parcel one after the other. Her aunt kept advising her to be faithful and diligent. Waya kept working and earning monthly salary at the pool office every month while she saved almost every little amount she could in preparation for her future studies as a nurse. She was very happy because she felt lucky at having a good husband on the pipeline and a prospective career to be started in a few years' time. Meanwhile, her boss, whose name was Ebika, had started admiring and liking her. She was so beautiful, fresh and dedicated to her duties that he could not help but decide to date her. He tried luring her into a relationship with expensive gifts to win her to himself, but Waya was not the type to be won over. She had a focus on her future husband, work and studies to become a nurse, so there was no space for such nonsense within her. Most times he would drive her home in his car after closing from work and promise her all sorts of goodies. But Waya was not the type to fall for any man outside Alaso, her betrothed. Ebika decided to talk to her one-on-one at lunchtime after a meeting one day. On that day, he invited her to follow him to a meeting of all post office owners in the city. And on their way back, it was lunchtime, so he decided they stopped in a restaurant for a meal. While they were eating, he threw the words at her. "Why, my dear, I have a request to make of you," he said. The unsuspecting innocent girl replied, "I'm listening, sir." "Oh, drop the sir and call me by my name, Ebika," he said, waving his right hand nonchalantly in the air. "But sir, you are my boss, and it's not proper I start calling you by your name," she replied. "What will people say?" "Well, I'm the boss, and I say call me by my name, okay?" This did not go down well with Uwaya, and she frowned while eating quietly the food her boss had ordered for her. He was also eating his food. He looked at her and said, "Uwaya, you can see from the way I treat you that I'm interested in you and would like to take you as my wife." The surprised Uwaya rose her face, her shy face up, and looked at her boss for the very first time straight in the eyes. "Oh, no, sir," she exclaimed. "I'm sorry, boss, but I'm already betrothed." "Betrothed?" exclaimed Ebika sarcastically. "But I've never seen any man come close to you since you started working with me." "Yes, sir, you are right," she replied. "That's because he doesn't live in the country. He's studying in Britain." Ha ha ha! Ebika laughed loudly, staring at her in surprise. "So, you are among those girls young men keep betrothed in the country, and they travel abroad, after which they get married to whites over there, and the girl at home becomes an old maiden?" Waya seemed to have been bashed in the face by his harsh words, and she tried as much as she could to defend her love, alas. "Take my advice, young lady, and stop wasting your time waiting for such a man, because he's never coming back to marry you after seeing those beautiful girls over there," he said. "Moreover, by the time you've waited so long for him, no man will be ready to marry you again." The simple village girl was so bashed with discouraging words that she felt sad all day. When she got home, she discussed it with her aunt, but she did not tell her her boss was asking her out. If she had told her, her aunt would have stopped her from going back there to work. But she needed the money, and so she did not tell her aunt that aspect of their discussion that day. Her aunt advised her to be consistent and never to mind what people say about it, because she was sure Alaso was not the type to disappoint a woman. Almost every day, he began making advances towards Uwaya, and each time throwing discouraging words at her about Alaso. She would sit down fuming at the post office and concentrating on her work. Alaso, on his part, kept writing loving and encouraging letters to his bride-to-be, and will sometimes do part-time jobs to buy expensive gifts for her. It was time for him to write his project now and final exams, and so he could not write or do any part-time job to get enough money to buy and send anything back home. He had to concentrate on his studies to pass his examination. He did not want to fail because it would be a shameful thing to his family, nation, and personality. When messages stopped coming from Alaso, Waya became worried, confused, and started to believe what her boss was telling her. Many nights she would cry herself to sleep, and her aunt would be advising her to be courageous because she felt there must be a reason for him not writing back home all of a sudden. When Alaso finished his examination, he decided to write home. But on his way back from school in a railway station, the wallet where he kept his village addresses was snatched from him by thieves. He did not know what to do, and when he got home, he searched for all traces of the addresses from somewhere. He must have written them down, but there was no way he could find any. Since he had lost the addresses and could not find a way to write home, and he had finished his examination, he decided to focus on working to earn money. He decided to work for the next 1 year to enable him gather enough money to travel home to see his wife-to-be and family and do the marriage. He did his best, working hard, saving money and barely spending just to get enough for the journey home. Almost a year had passed now, and no letter from Alasu. Owaya was constantly being pursued by Ebika and taunted that her betrothed husband had ditched her. She was disappointed. But with the prospect of going back to school at the back of her mind, she kept forging ahead. One day, her aunt's husband brought home some forms for her to fill for the nursing course she was going to start at the beginning of the following year, which was about 6 months away. Waya filled the form and did the entrance examination. She was lucky to pass the examination and was accepted to resume by January the following year. The pressure from Ebika and other workers who had come to know about her love story was so much that she began to soften. Ebika told her he was still interested in marrying her if she was interested in marrying him also. The other workers joined and kept on advising her to marry Ebika because he had the money, he was handsome and also caring. That was how Ebika forced Owaya to start dating him, but she refused to have any intimacy with him. Ebika worshipped the ground the soft and gentle Owaya treaded on. He took her everywhere he went to make her feel very important in his life. He also introduced her to his family as his future wife, and they all accepted her despite the fact that they were from different tribes. Waya on her part still loved Alasu and kept on thinking about him. She did not give up on him despite the fact that he had taken her love for granted. She was just following Ebika, but there were no promises from her side. She was following him in case it turned out Alasu did not come back again. She would then switch over to him. Waya's aunt did not know what to say again because she knew her knees had been badly hurt by Alasu. She kept mute and kept on praying for Alasu to find true love again. It was not long before Ebika, the experienced wise man of the city, lured Owaya to bed after giving her alcohol to drink in a sent-forth party given to a colleague of theirs. A few weeks later, Owaya started vomiting and it became obvious that she had become pregnant. Her aunt was furious. She was not happy at all because she knew the family would be angry with her over what was happening now to Owaya. But there was nothing she could do about it now. It was too late to cry when the head is off, she thought within her. Owaya was 4 months into her pregnancy when Alasu arrived the country from London to marry his betrothed. His parents and the villagers were happy to see him and were glad he had come back to fulfill his promise to marry from the village. Alasu was given the address of where he would find Owaya and her aunt in Lagos when he was told that Owaya had left for Lagos, and he travelled to Lagos to bring back his wife. He got to Lagos 3 days later and was happy to trace the house where they lived with the address given to him. Owaya's aunt started to cry when she found that Alasu had come back to marry her niece. So she sent for Owaya. When Owaya arrived, Alasu was shocked to see betrothed pregnant. He was disappointed and was completely lost in feelings. Imagine all these years of dreaming about Owaya's love, and now what? He asked within. Owaya was crying and felt disappointed in Ebika and all those friends who had led her to believe Alasu had betrayed her. Alasu still loved her and told her aunt that Owaya should do an abortion and remove the unborn baby so that he would marry her and take her back with him to London. Owaya, who was still in love with Alasu, was ready to do it, but when Ebika got to know about the plan, he was ready to do and undo. He said his unborn child must not be removed and promised to marry Owaya, who did not love him at all. When the problem was so much, Alaso was disappointed and left. He flew back to London the following week without his much cherished Owaya, in a complete dejected mood. At the end of 9 months, the sad Owaya gave birth to a bouncing baby boy, and Ebika was very happy. She was now living with Ebika without being married. He promised when the baby was about 3 months old, he would go and pay her dowry. It was now a year since Owaya gave birth to the baby, and instead of Ebika going to pay the dowry as he had promised, drove Owaya out of his house. That he did not want her anymore. The child was seized from Owaya and she was thrown out. Owaya went to meet her aunt, and when they heard about it all, Ebika was called by Owaya's family, invited to a meeting, and told to go and pay Owaya's dowry. But he told them he was not ready to marry yet and not interested in marriage anymore, and left the entire family disappointed. The following morning, Owaya went to Ebika's house and called his family. While they were there, Owaya stood up and told the family what their son had done. But to her horror, they supported him and told her their son was not going to marry someone from another tribe. In anger and frustration, Owaya got up and said, "Ebika, you made me lose the love of my life with your manipulations. You deceived me and promised me the world. Your family accepted me as your future wife after knowing that I'm not from the same tribe with you. But at last, you are walking out of my life, leaving me with nothing other than frustration, pain, and disappointment." The family of Ebika did not understand what Owaya was trying to say, and from their expressions, Owaya meant nothing to them. Owaya looked up at the sky, consulting the power that she knew her ancestors possessed, and continued, "If there is a creator that made me to be, you will never make it in your life, Ebika. From now on, all your wealth will be lost, and you will return back to your village at the mercy of others. You think you are a city man, and you are very wise, and you have won. I have lost, and you will also lose." Ebika's family were astounded by her ways, but looked at her maliciously. They did not allow her to take her child, but sent her out of the place forcefully. In tears, she walked out of Ebika's house without a single pin, and went back to her aunt's home with the feeling that she had lost it all. A year later, Ebika fell ill. It was so serious that all his wealth could not revive him, and he lost everything. He was now begging from hand to mouth. All his handsomeness and businesses were gone. When the suffering was too much, his family and others in the neighborhood contributed money and gave to him. And together with his illness and his poverty, everything, he was taken back to the village. That is the end of this story. Subscribe, like, and press the notification bell so that you'll be the first to get my videos each time I send a new one out. Thank you very much.